I present the following report of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into processes and procedures followed by the government of Papua New Guinea into obtaining the offshore loan from the Union Bank of Switzerland and related transactions. Volume A, Volume 1, that contains a report of the Commission of Inquiry into the UBS loan. Volume 1B, list of tendered exhibitions, or exhibits, beg your pardon. Volume 2, legislations and commission procedures. Volume 3A, key documents. Volume 3B, key documents. Volume 4, expert reports. Mr. Speaker, I'll be signing the copies to present to the clerk. I now ask leave of Parliament to make a statement in connection with this report.
Is leave granted? Leave granted. Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to present to this Parliament and the people of our country the Commission of Inquiry report into the UBS loan deal and related transactions. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, the O'Neill-led government obtained an Australian dollar 1.3 billion loan from the Union Bank of Switzerland to acquire a 10.1% share interest in Oilsets Limited. This decision came about after the International Petroleum Investment Company, or IPIC, retained the state share in Oilsets after obtaining an amount of Australian dollar 1.681 billion to the state in 2009 to finance the state's equity in the PNG LNG project. The UBS deal attracted so much criticism from the public, international observers, and members of Parliament as the deal, despite involving huge amounts of public monies, was entered into within a very short space of time. This has caused so much controversy about the entire deal. Mr. Speaker, on 30th of April 2019, the Ombudsman Commission delivered to the Speaker of the Parliament its reports on an investigation it conducted into the UBS loan deal. The investigation and report was done by the Ombudsman Commission pursuant to its powers under the Constitution and Section 23 of the Organic Law on Ombudsman Commission. After my government was formed in 2019, one of our first agendas was to have the OC report on UBS loan deal tabled in Parliament to enable public scrutiny on the entire deal and allow appropriate actions on the investigation, despite myself being also listed as a leader listed in the Ombudsman report. This report was tabled and we did not hold it back. Mr. Speaker, after tabling the report, there were concerns that the report did not encompass the entirety of the conduct of individuals and entities, both domestic and international. As a result, on the 26th of June 2019, I proposed to this Parliament that a Commission of Inquiry is established to ascertain the facts surrounding the whole deal and related transactions, including all persons and entities involved in the deal and whether or not the deal followed the proper and legal processes and procedures. Accordingly, a Commission of Inquiry was established to essentially ascertain these matters. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry was necessitated by public concerns on improprieties in regards to the whole deal. There were conflicting narratives behind the purposes of the deal, where on the one hand, there was consensus that the deal was necessary to ensure government retained a strategic interest in oil sets by obtaining the loan to purchase new sets in Oil Sets Limited, while on the other, there were consensus that the deal was totally unnecessary for the state and a handout for Oil Sets to purchase its interest in PRL 15, or better known, the Elk Antelope project in Gulf, which is today entitled as Papua LNG. Mr. Speaker, some critics even expressed concerns that the deal was necessary to bail out the state from the IPIC deal, which was argued to be a bad deal for the state. The controversies behind the purpose of the deal, together with the improprieties involved in the whole deal, gave cause for the Commission of Inquiry to be established to look into these matters. Mr. Speaker, for the record, the terms of reference of the Commission of Inquiry covered the following topics: the Oregon Minerals merger with Oil Sets in 2002, the PNG LNG project, the UBS loan, the purchase of Oil Sets shares, the Elk Antelope transaction by Oil Sets, the sale of Oil Sets shares, and other related and associated matters. Mr. Speaker, after sitting for about 126 days, the Commission of Inquiry has received and analyzed over 19,000 documents, received exhibits comprising over 10,000 documents, and received evidences from over 60 witnesses, including myself and the former Prime Minister. It was a significant undertaking in any context and jurisdiction. The COI completed its investigation and compiled a report comprising 15 volumes. And I am pleased to say that the report has now laid bare the controversies surrounding the UBS loan deal and has brought to light certain central issues as to whether the UBS loan deal was done in the best interests of the state and people of Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, should I, if you could excuse my indulgence, if you could seek your indulgence rather. The report in its 15th volume is so big to be brought into Parliament. I think the Clerk of Parliament is distributing the first 2 volumes. We've got it tabled on the floor of Parliament symbolically to ensure it is tabled on the floor of Parliament. For the rest of you, 111 copies. That is 111 bundles being delivered to our office. So you can all make reference to the statements that I am making too and have a look into this entire deal in totality. Mr. Speaker, the Commission was thorough in its work. It examined in full the reason why the exchangeable bond transaction was determined and whether it fulfilled its purposes. It determined that the risks were well managed in the case of the exchangeable bond transaction, but not in the case of UBS loan. I repeat, there are confusion by those who support the UBS loan that the UBS loan was necessitated by the IPIC exchangeable bond transaction. This inquiry made it absolutely clear, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat again in this case, Mr. Speaker, it determined that the risks were well managed in the case of exchangeable bond transaction that the National Alliance-led government did for us to purchase a direct stake in PNG LNG that is now benefiting the country, but not in the case of the UBS loan, where we tried to prop up share stock of a private company, and that was clearly evident in the transaction. It reviewed that the unsuccessful attempts by state entities to persuade the IPIC to give up its contractual rights to retain the oil set shares. It had a look at the state where it became apparent that the oil search shares would be lost, and therefore the need to explore opportunities for oil search to reissue new shares to the state. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the report noted the emerging opportunities to buy into the valuable gas resources, the elk antelope in PRL 15, and a need that there was created for the state to seek financing because for the oil search timetable on PRL 15. It examined in detail and sequenced a 15-day period within which a complex series of processes and documents were put together to arrive at a point where the UBS loan was approved by NEC and the documents executed. It also examined how the loan was novated to Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited and eventually sold at a significant loss in 2017. Mr. Speaker, the Commission has declared that UBS loan was entirely unnecessary because it resulted in the loss of the same shares, significant financial losses to the state of in excess of 340 million Australian dollars, approximately to the tune of 902 million kina, lost opportunities, including the opportunity to establish sovereign wealth fund as intended when the PNG LNG first revenue was coming in, and a significant diversion of revenues from the Papua New Guinea LNG project once the export of LNG began in 2014. And Mr. Speaker, should I add here, for those in the know, knew that first gas returns were coming in 2014, and instead of benefiting directly from the first gas return, money was siphoned off into this crafty scheme for the purchase of oil search share, oil search 10.1% share for indirect involvement by state in the PRL 15. Instead of us preparing money to buy direct stake in PRL 15, it was done and oil search was gifted almost 20% stake in PRL 15, using state as a conduit of that transaction. Mr. Speaker, the Commission of Inquiry has made some stunning conclusions. The UBS loan had no satisfactory justification or rationale. It declared that there was no strategic interest in obtaining new oil search shares in 2014. The failure to follow proper processes, coupled with the speed with which complex documentation was produced, meant no one within the public service understood the overcharging of the state by UBS and the risk inherent in the UBS loans. In addition to its sizable fee of $28.4 million, UBS also benefited from refinancing of the COLA loan in December 2014 and February 2016, and from the ultimate sale of the shares in September 2017. Its total overcharging amounts to Australian dollars 175 million kina, and this report recommends that this money should be repaid to the people of Papua New Guinea. Lawyers retained by the state did not advise the state properly, Mr. Speaker, on the potential conflict of interest and how to manage them. Or if they were advised, then their advice were ignored. Officers responsible for NEC policy submission failed to set out the downside to the proposal and the false statement that the then treasurer agreed to the submission contents. The then Prime Minister knew that the submission was complex and lengthy, but did not provide the NEC advance notice or the real opportunity to debate the submission during the meeting. The meeting lasted less than an hour. These are vital process of democracy and good governance. Mr. Speaker, the Commission makes specific recommendations on the question of who was responsible and what remedies should be sought against them. It suffices for now.
We can do it in the dark. We can do it in the dark. It's on.
May carry on? Systems on?
No.
It's on.
All right, it suffices for now to say that those recommendations are specific and remedies are also specific. Needless to say, Mr. Speaker, the former Prime Minister has been recommended for prosecution and to be referred to the Independent Commission Against Corruption. The report also called for specific public service leaders to be referred to the Leadership Tribunal. Mr. Speaker, UBS has been named for overcharging and providing a misleading and deceptive product and should be asked to repay the amounts overcharged, and criminal sanctions should be pursued both in Papua New Guinea and Australia. Norson and Ross, Fulbright legal firm's failure to give proper advice to the state should be further examined, and the firm banned from doing work for the state and state-owned enterprises for 5 years. And the former and current UBS and this law firm, Norson, Wright, Fulbright, for those in the legal know-how, NRFA, personnel have been named to be banned from providing services to the state or any SOEs for 5 years, or should be forever if this Parliament decides. These are thieves of our people's money. Mr. Speaker, the report of the Commission of Inquiry also contains a number of recommendations, particularly on the following: amendments to the Commission of Inquiry Act to improve and enhance its powers, improvements to our public service system in keeping proper records and documentations of government businesses, prohibition of certain foreign individuals and entities from doing any work for state by reason of their conduct, amendments to the Leadership Code to enable retrospective accountability of persons under the Leadership Code, investigations against UBS and the law firm Norson Ross Fulbright on their conduct in respect of their duty of care to the state and the management of the conflict of interest situations, amendments to relevant legislations covering overseas commercial loans by government to ensure prior parliamentary approval above a defined, at a defined level, and implementation of the Sovereign Wealth Fund and its relevant functions and features. Mr. Speaker, as we approach the date of issues of writs, I wish to state on record that any government worth its word must undertake to implement the recommendations of the COI, including the pursuit of restitution on behalf of the state against the corporations involved in the UBS deal based on the findings of COI. And I repeat, any governments worth its word after the elections, or right through and after the elections, must pursue the restitution that we are seeking, or all the recommendations that COI, which was conducted at the highest level, be fully delivered in its intention, and prosecution and restitution be delivered. The People's House must ensure that those who have propensity of entering into such deals are never again given another opportunity to lead government. Interest for self and interest for collective gain of our country, losing millions of kina in this process. Mr. Speaker, let's just ask this question today. Do we have any interest in oil shale today? We lost it. 700 or 900 million kina or so was lost in this transaction. Similar to Solwara 1 project, we lost money. Our nation is littered with so much losses that is the result of this executive government decision. The past government had this transaction, some of us were part of. My government's entering into transaction. Any governments into the future must remember this. Parliament, on behalf of people, has every right to scrutinize any executive government transactions. And in its interest, not Toya or not one kina, but millions and hundreds of millions of kina that could have been put to the Connect PNG program or the so-called free education programs that we've been running, or the education expansion, but it was sunk into a scheme to fund a scam. It was sunk into a scheme to fund a scam. Scam of the highest order. Scam of the highest order that siphoned our people's money. Today, we have no interest in oil sets as we speak. We gifted oil sets easy access into 20% of PRL 15 at the cost of PNG money. Oil sets folded now for reasons only known to them. All the UBS executives that facilitated the transaction retired from office. But let me remind UBS, as you listen through the media that is coming on, or any international company for that matter, Papua New Guinea is not what we were in 1975. They were much better than us at that time, but there were less schemes. Today and going forward, executive government's decisions stand scrutiny of the parliament, as we are scrutinizing today. And we will seek restitution for clarity. Long Papua New Guinea man merit restitution minimum. Mabla go after UBS bank. Lo back and back money, lo Papua New Guinea lo losing was that transaction. Mabla go after lucky oil sets past finish. You kiss him 10, you kiss him PRL 15, nothing. Money lo people lo Papua New Guinea. Transaction income. This one executive government making finish. Now 1 plus date established display, read him good. On the 28th or 27th of February, then MD long oil sets, Peter Bottom talk. Government but buy him share long oil sets. Yet, this one government is not making yet. How am Sawe? The executive government then 6 days later on the 6th of March 2014, make him decision of buy him exactly 10.01% share of that. At the time, Peter Bottom make him a statement. Peter Bottom, you stop where you good man. You must talk out, not talk straight. Must talk out, not talk straight. You like stop lumber life, you must talk out, not talk straight. Make him this decision. Cabinet Karem 6 days later with a plenty background, people transaction. Oil sets you kiss him free through 20% stake plus PRL 15. At $800 or $900 million report he talk. $900 million, you kiss him nothing. UBS give him money. UBS, you lawyer long oil sets. UBS, you lawyer long bank long oil sets that you bank long Papua New Guinea government. So this was something come up now. Papua New Guinea no I pass anymore. Mr. Prime Minister Natus, I was making wrong decision and right law members law checking me behind. I'm right. Right law parliament law checking behind. Country leave me before I talk. Cayman Island deal. Can deal, he got me, no second good. may I appeal on leaders, look at this report good. Look at this report good. Now, I'm not picking one month or so. Brother, lo remember lo yellow pangia stop upside, no can cross, picking you. Picking me. Our people of this country deserve big money, you may lose him. All said kiss him nothing. You mean uphold him money, buy him direct say no. PRL 15, yeah? Why you may go indirect na advice come to important na. Me plus some blog or talk invest in na. Defend him rubbish deal not. Today, competent inquiry. Sit down, look. Only talk and big plan wrong come up. UBS must back and back dinner people of Papua New Guinea or money you use him. All sets you pass finish now. Me no go name in Nubla company come in set part. You kiss him free gift through now you go finish. You kiss him free gift through now you go finish. Money block PNG LNG in start lo flow 2015 yeah. You may sink him, divert him through Kumul Petroleum. Now this la transaction you may facilitate in this. Mr. Speaker, the People's House must ensure that the incoming government must establish, or today rather, today we will establish, not the incoming government. The incoming government must carry on to ensure that the finding that is established by the competent commission of inquiry that had some of the highest qualified legal minds and judges in Australia who are facilitating this and supervised the inquiry, the finding must be fully given its conclusion in terms of prosecution and restitution. Mr. Speaker, the People's House must establish a multi-agency team comprising Treasury and Finance, Ombudsman Commission, Transparency International, ICAC, PM's Department, and Police to take up the report, take stock of its clear recommendations, and ensure that they are implemented. It must be a multi-task or sectoral team, not only one department or one agency. I repeat, Prime Minister and NEC, Treasury and Finance, Ombudsman Commission, representing integrity organizations, Ombudsman Commission, Transparency International from arm's length from us, and ICAC and Department of Justice to have a multi-task force to look into the recommendations by this UBS inquiry and then start the process of prosecution as well as restitution. Prosecution meaning koti mo line mibla involved with display. Long rubbish work lo mibla. The restitution meaning koti UBS, koti oil sets, koti Fulbright, long kissing back money blo Papua New Guinea where mibla lusim lo. Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying our state agencies such as Ombudsman Commission, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, and Police, as part of this body of task force established, are at liberty to pursue appropriate actions against the individuals and entities, both foreign and domestic, based on the report. Sufficient copies of the report will be made available to all these agencies and anyone interested in reading through this report, and they are at total liberty to invoke in their own specific laws in relation to these matters. Mr. Speaker, this inquiry reminds us of our responsibilities to maintain the core interests of our constituents in all decisions we make as leaders. This is a council where our collective mind speaks. When processes are managed in such a way that allows a minimum scrutiny of our proposals, we have a problem and loses that qualification. Sometimes those losses are irretrievable. When recommendations are pursued, it adds to the quantum of losses. Example, we already spent 30 million kina in establishing these further findings. When further recommendations are pursued, the losses are aggregated. But let me remind our country, no loss is greater than the actual loss of our people's trust and what was already lost. Today, our generation of leaders must put in place the brakes to making hasty decisions for the benefit of corporate giants and one or two people like Carlos Sivelli. Carlos Sivelli, all road led to you. All road leads to you in the transaction. The owner of PEC LNG, wherever you are, without fear or favor, through this parliament and my people's house, all road leads to you. You are not a public listed company. You're a private one-man company. You have known to have dinner with leaders of our country here in Port Moresby. All roads leads to you, Mr. Carlos Sivelli. All road leads to you, oil sets. And all road leads to UBS. And sadly, but truly, all roads lead to the member for Yalu Pangia, who, as former Prime Minister, had a direct hand in this. Mr. Speaker, having said this, I now present a report of the Commission of Inquiry into the UBS loan deal and related transactions before Parliament for tabling and consideration. It draws to a close a significant effort on the part of the government to highlight these issues and ensure that the perpetrators take responsibility. Let me close by saying, this is not a full stop. This is a punctuation mark in the story of truly taking back Papua New Guinea. God bless.